He just, he,
I told him ahead of time, but he just checked. He said
Interesting. Did you hear I resigned?
I'm
to
going
run
to-
for mayor. I resigned to run for mayor.
But most of the guys don't need it. Do it to keep, it's just like all the stuff I do to keep busy, keep my mind active.
Hey, young lady. How you doing?
Good morning, Ms. Yvonne. Good morning, good morning. Am I on? Yes, I am. I'm on. Good morning. It is 10 o'clock, and we will bring the Space Coast TPO Governing Board meeting together. Today is July 13th, 2023, and will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rob Medina must not be here. I didn't hear the hoorah.
Quorum.
Yes, we do not. Zoe, would you please conduct a roll call?
Okay. Yes. Okay. Allender.
Here.
Barton.
Here?
Cole.
Yes.
Felix. Feltner. I did see him walk in the door. Should I? Okay. Forrester.
Here.
Foster. Hanley. Goodson. Koss. Medina. Minus. Pritchett. Robinson. Sanders.
Here.
Steele. Tobiah. Willis. Young.
Here.
We are one short. We are still one short of
Still one
quorum.
short.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Feltner.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Regarding public comment, anyone to wishing to make a comment on an item that's not on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card and give it to Ms. Zoe McNeely over here in the corner. Anyone wishing to make a comment on something that is on the agenda, also please fill out a speaker card and give it to Zoe right here at the corner. We'll go on with reports in Georgiana.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. So great to see everyone. I wanted to start out by noting just ever since we moved our meetings from the 2 p.m. time slot up to 10 a.m., we are consistently struggling to get a quorum. And so we are going to just put it on the table that would the members like us, the members that are here, like us to investigate getting the room back in 2 p.m. Or 1:30 to, or maybe even, excuse me, a little later, 2 p.m. Is that something that you would like us to do? Would it be easier for your schedules? I know that we are struggling with getting any Palm Bay members here. Of course, Commissioner Feltner is always here. We typically only have one commissioner here. So what are your thoughts on that? Good, 2 p.m.
Any
I would be in favor of 2 p.m.
Okay, all
2
right.
p.m.? Anyone else?
2 p.m. works for me.
I have another meeting at 3, so I'm always having to kind of hold the end of the meeting to go.
Okay. Is 1:30 doable? So that Councilmember Minus can make the meeting? All right.
1:30 is good. I know that's better for you, Paul. Yes.
Oh,
1:30 is
well,
good for you?
so we need to investigate it. We need to make sure that we can get this room. So let us work on it. We're on it, and I think that it might help us in the future. This is an important meeting, and of course, we have our quorum. Councilmember Hanley's walking in. We're adopting our transportation improvement program, our list of project priorities. So it's one of the major things we do every year, and so it is really important that we have a quorum. So thank you for that. We will work on moving the meeting to 1:30 p.m. on Thursday. And you're supportive.
1:30 give you time? I mean, to me, there's not much difference between 1 and 1:30. If that gives her time to get to her.
Still in the middle of the day.
Would it give time for everyone to have lunch
Noon?
and make it here? Okay.
About 10 o'clock. Yeah, I like that.
I'll second that.
All right, what is the preference?
1:30.
1:30, okay.
Okay, everybody good with 1:30 still? All right, we'll leave it at 1:30.
All right, we will work on 1:30 and let you know as soon as possible and see if we can move these meetings for the remainder of the year and, of course, into next year as well. Okay. I want to give you a couple project updates. On June the 12th, the Melbourne-Orlando International Airport hosted our Ellis Road stakeholder meeting. And the purpose of the meeting was to really update our elected officials and the business community on the progress that we've made on the project over the past year. The DOT provided updates on the right-of-way acquisition status and the development of a pre-construction working group. And that group meets monthly to basically work through construction details and explore options of advanced utility and clearing and grubbing so that we can set ourselves up and get ready for construction as soon as possible in fiscal year 26. So it is a really good meeting. I think we've made a lot of progress, and we have a very dynamic team. The group also talked about our funding strategy for Ellis. As you know, we are close to $50 million short, even though we have $30.3 million programmed. And so we talked about our strategy, the infrastructure grant, which is a USDOT grant. Speaking of the infra, the notice of funding opportunity was just released in the past week and a half. And the grant is designed, of course, for mainly projects that pertain to the National Highway System or the National Highway Freight Network, which Ellis is on the National Highway System and a strategic intermodal system connector. So this is a very highly competitive grant. We have HDR, the TPO's consultant, developing that grant on behalf of the county. And our consultant is working hard on that and they're developing a cost-benefit analysis, which is a component of the grant. And Brevard County will be the applicant. The TPO, we're not an implementing agency. It makes more sense that the county would be the applicant, but we have been working over the past year with DOT in setting it up to where the department would construct it. So it's a county road. The DOT would be the county would be the applicant, but the DOT would construct it on behalf of the county. So we will be asking for letters of support from each one of your municipalities. It is extremely important that we show that unified support. Also, we have a meeting scheduled at the airport on the 26th of this month with Secretary Tyler and a few key players to discuss the advocacy or the politic side of this grant, because it's not enough to just submit the grant. We have to advocate for it. It is extremely important. So we're going to need your help as we move forward and, with working with lobbyists, connections with U.S. senators, the congressional delegation. That is going to be extremely important to advocate for this project in Washington. We also branded the Ellis Road project. It is, instead of the Ellis Road widening, it is Ellis Road Innovation and Economic Corridor for the Space Coast. And our consultant is developing a flyer, so that would be a tool that would be used for discussing and having those engagement on the project. So stay tuned. We have a lot of work to do, but we are hopeful, and we appreciate our DOT partners, Melbourne, West Melbourne, of course, the county. This project has the most support I have ever seen on a project, and really good projects have a lot of support. So I think that we are on the right track here. Moving on to another high priority project. You may have heard that through the media, the State Road 401 Bridge project, there was quite a few media reports that the replacement of the bridge at the port has been either put on hold or it really has not been put on hold according to DOT, but that they were not moving forward into the design phase quite yet. The PD&E phase has been ongoing for a couple of years now. And if you remember, when the department came and presented, the preferred alternative was a high-level fixed span bridge. It was cheaper to maintain, and it also made a lot of sense for the equipment going over the bridge and how it would tie into the 528, which would be widened in the future. So as the PD&E phase was wrapping up and the design phase was about to begin, the department was asked to re-engage with the space community, the commercial space companies, before moving forward with the design phase. And that was to gather more information on a possible need for the future to transport rocket boosters that wouldn't fit under a fixed span bridge. So this conversation was going on with the department, and so that did, cause some concern from the port and others, because the bridge is the sole public access to the north part of the port with 4 cruise terminals, major cargo operations. It's on the strategic highway network due to the military installations. It is literally a single point of failure. So we all understand that this bridge is extremely important. So, there's no construction funding yet for the project, but, when a project slows down, you might say, it concerns all of us, but the department has been pretty clear that things are still moving along on the project. And Commissioner Allender, I know that this discussion came up at your Port Commission meeting. Did you want to add anything before I move on?
Thank you. Obviously, it was a surprise to the Canaveral Port Authority. It was discussed in great detail at our meeting. The bridge is extremely important, not only for cruise, cargo, but also for safety needs of Kennedy Space Center, since on the south side of Kennedy Space Center, Canaveral Air Force, there's no other way to get in and out. And if there's times when the bridge is not working or it's up, it creates a real problem. The authority did ask the chairman of the Canaveral Port Authority to send a letter to FDOT regarding this matter. And, one of the things you ask of, we've been having hearings on 401 and 528 for at least 2 years. And so I asked, where has the space agency been this whole time as to what their input would be? Obviously, somewhat disappointing that it looks like it's on hold. I know those are not necessarily the words that FDOT is using. We could always make everything sound good by the use of proper words, but it's obvious that at least in the relative short term, not only the 401, but the widening is put on hold. All we can hope is that someone with FDOT will understand the critical need of that bridge and will move forward with the project.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And Madam Chair, I know that Jack Adkins, the Director of DOT, is here. Jack, did you want to say anything just from the DOT perspective, or I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
That's fine. And thank you, Georgina and Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Commissioner Allender did capture things quite succinctly, as did you, Georgiana. It is the department's position that nothing has been put on hold. There is no following construction phase. The design phase is not fully funded. There's only a little bit of money in there to get started right now. So essentially, we're in the same phase. We're in the PD&E phase. I understand that it looks like it's a pause. I understand the port's feelings. We met this week with Senator Debbie Mayfield, the port, Space Florida, a lot of the launch service providers, and DOT, and we had a very robust discussion. There's a wharf study, without getting into a bunch of weeds, there's a wharf study out there, and consultants looking at maybe different ways to be able to assist with the launch service providers and getting boosters back and that kind of thing, and getting their parts up to the Space Center. The port has a model that they need guys in and out. They need those cargo berth space are very important to them, and we understand that. So we just we've got some deadlines on when that wharf study will conclude. So we're still working behind the scenes to kind of tweak the PD&E. There was also a concern on our part that if we have stakeholders that are concerned or have issues, we can only finish the PD&E. It has to go to our central office up in Tallahassee to be finalized, the Office of Environmental Management. And sometimes if you have stakeholders out there that are displeased or have concerns, they won't finalize the PD&E. So we're just trying to make sure that we've listened to everybody's concerns and then we're moving forward. Space is very important to Brevard County. The port is very important to Brevard County. Two major stakeholders. I mean, I grew up here. I was in elementary school in '64 when everybody's dad worked at the Space Center and was launching Gemini and Apollo, so I get it. I did a lot of appraisal work for the port back when I was in private sector and living in Brevard. I get their concerns too, so we just want to make sure if we can hang on for a couple of 3 weeks, I think we'll get the right answer and we'll be able to move forward in a positive way for everyone. So.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Well, thank you for that time. I mean, these are definitely two of our major projects. The widening of 528, the 401 bridge replacement, and Ellis Road. These are all SIS facilities and so important for our economic future, to support those economic drivers that we have here on the Space Coast. And so we have Abby's public engagement report is in your package, and Abby has had her baby. Baby Arlo was born on June 28th at 9:22 p.m., and she's doing great, as well as her husband, Logan, who works for Brevard County, and the baby is fabulous. He's adorable, so we're happy for her. And then finally, I wanted to let everyone know we held our open house on June the 6th, and we had 55 attendees. And this is where we really talk about transportation planning and just try to get the public in to talk about our priorities and get that public engagement. And I know some of our board members was in attendance, and we appreciate your support for being there. That really is always important. And then the very last item, I would like to ask Shelby to come up, our education and outreach coordinator, to talk about our Vision Zero workshop that we were very happy about.
Thank you, Georgiana. Good morning, everyone. So on June 14th, we hosted a Vision Zero workshop called Taking Action Together. I want to give a shout out to those of you who were able to join us. I know you're busy, and it was a half-day event, so thank you for taking the time to come out. We had a really well-rounded group that came and really focused on inspiring innovation, sharing some best practices, and really kind of fostering that collaboration among not only those in the room, but also with the speakers that we had come out and join us that day, some regional thought leaders there. We shared registration with the boards, the committees, our Vision Zero leadership team, and also put that out on social media and with our community traffic safety team as well. So we really wanted to get as many people involved as we could in a diverse group, and I think we did a pretty good job. We had 40 people in attendance, engineers and planners, of course, but also some law enforcement, elected officials, and even some community advocates. So we were really excited about that, and also people from the county, the school board, as well as 11 of our municipalities. So like I said, a pretty diverse group. We couldn't have asked for a better turnout, as well as a pretty engaged group. We got a lot of great feedback from them. I'm not doing that right, okay. We heard about 5 different initiatives and projects really focused on, 2 of them focusing on more quick build, low cost countermeasure things that are low cost, low investment, but high impact, while the other 2 spoke on things that are more of those longer term projects that we all know can take time, effort, and money. And then we also heard about some law enforcement resources to help support our law enforcement partners. And so we put all of those PowerPoints on our website if you're interested in seeing them and going back and seeing them. But we're excited to kind of meet with our leadership team and expand upon the things they learned and hopefully keep pushing forward. I did want to point out in the previous slide, those 3 things that were most wanted from feedback from our open house were safety improvements, sidewalks, bike lanes, and safety improvements. So I think that speaks volumes to what we want here, and that's to save lives on the roadways. So thank you so much.
That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that I was at that meeting, and all compliments to Zoe. She ran that meeting, and she did an excellent job. It was like herding cats sometimes, and she had every cat on point. Shelby, I'm sorry, Shelby. And
Zoe's great
right
too.
behind me, but she's exactly. But she absolutely did a wonderful job. I was so impressed, and so were many of the people in the audience. It was well attended, and that's all because of you. So thank you for a great job. All right, Georgiana, maybe please have the report for the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee report.
Yes, the TACCAC met on Monday, and they approved all the action items that are before you. They also received a presentation from the Federal Railroad Administration and Brightline. The reason why those 2 presentations did not come before you today is FRA reached out. They were really looking to do a town hall meeting with the anticipation of Brightline rolling through September 1st. They really wanted to get out to the public, and they needed to do it fairly quickly. And so the TACCAC meeting really was quite a large group of folks between the 2 committees. And we also invited our transportation subcommittee. We had some city managers there from the different municipalities here to hear that information, and it was really good, but we will give you a little briefing on that a little later on the agenda when Laura talks about quiet zones and our approach moving forward, so I'll hold that, but that is the report.
All right, thank you very much. And next we'll move on to the bicycle pedestrian trails. Ms. Sarah.
Good morning, Sarah Crom, Senior Transportation Planner. The BPAC met on June 26th to review the fiscal year 2024 list of project priorities, as well as also the recommendations that came out of the BPAC strategic assessment. After a lengthy discussion, and it was a very productive discussion, however, at the end of it, they did ask for an additional meeting before they made a decision on what their recommendation to the board would be regarding where the strategic assessment goes. So with that, we do have a new schedule in regards to the process of the strategic assessment. So in August, they will resume their discussion again. At that point, they will make a recommendation. And in September, we will provide the presentation that's in your package, as well as, in addition, their recommendation will be presented as well. So you'll receive the staff recommendation and the BPAC recommendation. Once we know the direction of the BPAC, we'll let them know in October, and then it'll become active January 1st, 2024, whatever the direction is. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on with the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board. Terry.
Good morning, everyone. This morning I'm reporting on the TDLCB board meetings. There were 2 meetings that were held over the last several months. The first one was held on May 15th, and at this time our standard reports were given, such as the community coordinators report, demand response and performance reports that were given, volunteers in motion report, and a director's report. We had our CTC evaluation, which is the Community Transportation Coordinator, which is Space Coast Area Transit. The evaluation was done by our partners at the TPO, and that report was given to the members of the LCB. There are 2 additional items of new business, which were the approval of the PCL 8 and the approval of the updated Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan. Those were both tabled for our members to be able to review the 2 reports more in detail and then make a decision on improving. So that meeting was subsequently held on 6/19. At that meeting, the approval of the annual updated TD Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan was approved. And noted changes were updates to the rate model. This is the amount that Space Coast Area Transit can bill to the TD Commission for the transportation, for the reimbursement for transportation provided for individuals that use the service. And secondarily, the criteria for which qualify for the services was also updated, and we fine-tuned some standards for our passenger no-shows and the amount of complaints that were received. So those were items that were of note for the TD report, for the TDS report. In addition to that, the update to the PCL 8, which is in your packet, you have that information for your approval today. So the revisions that were done in there, you will have already, if you review a packet, you will have seen those that are before you to approve today. We will also receive a presentation, TD 101, from David Darm, who is the Executive Director of the Florida Commission for the Transportation Disadvantage. This is the group that's responsible pretty much for the oversight of the TD services provided by all agencies throughout the state. So Mr. Darm came in and did a presentation to our members, and pretty much it was focusing on the roles and responsibilities of the LCB board members, of the Space Coast Transit the Space Coast Transit as the CTC, and Space Coast TPO as the designated official planning agency. So pretty much all it really was just to let our members know exactly what's required of them, their roles and responsibilities, and then things of that nature. So it was a good presentation, gave a good opportunity for insight, and a lot of information was shared that members were now becoming privy to that had not realized in the past. So this pretty much concludes my report on the items that were that transpired in the 2 LCB meetings.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you very much. All right, our next report is from FDOT. Yesenia, thank you.
Good morning. Yesenia Encarnacion, FDOT liaison. On page 41 of your packets, you'll find the Florida Department of Transportation report, construction report. I can take any questions or concerns or comments on that now. I do have a few updates to provide. Councilwoman Hanley, I know we discussed last meeting about the signage. So I did reach out to our studies engineer and express your concerns. I was informed by the team that they will be looking into adding more signage for advanced lane assignments. So they're currently working on that now. The project to extend the outside right turn lane back to the bridge shoulder is currently being advanced in design and incorporated into the next design build contract. So they're looking into adding that signage.
I'm just asking for a sign at, you know, at the least moment, that is like, there shouldn't be a hard time that we have to go 6 months, 7 months to put up a sign, to go in there. The study, I can understand it's gonna take a while. I don't have a problem with that. But can you just even let Commissioner Felter, even our city, if you give us the okay, we can put a sign up. That's all I'm asking for. I mean, it's very vital. I mean, it's causing such people are getting tickets, people getting accidents there. Just put a sign up. What do I have to do? Do I have to go to somebody's office and I'll sit there? I've been known to do that. But, you know, 7 months, I know you're just the messenger, but tell me what I got to do and I'll do it. This is getting to be ridiculous that you can't say to us, we just want to show a directional sign. That's it. I mean, yes, I want the other stuff, but let's start with point 1. And I don't think I'm asking anything extraordinary, but it should have been up to begin with. And what do I need to do? Tell me what I need to do, and I'll do it to get the sign up. I mean, you know, we're talking May was our last time, and I asked it to be in July 4th. How many more months? Are we going to talk by the time I'm up for election, after elections, that's when it's going to happen? I know I'm being sarcastic. I'm so sorry. But I'm feeling that that's what I'm waiting for. And tell me what I got to do to get this sign.
I understand, and someone from our team will be contacting you actually directly to discuss more about that. I don't know in detail what signage they're looking into installing, but someone will call you on that.
I'll draw it out for you guys. I don't know what else I can do. I mean, I know the Beachside, they're upset about it. They're just, I seem to be the leader of the pack on this situation because I get phone calls from, I have clients on that side, clients on this side, and they said, it's a hot mess. But we got to do something.
Can I ask a quick question? If Kevin Marquez is in Brevard soon, could I talk to him about that? Is that appropriate? Is he the best person to talk to?
Is this in the traffic ops department? I know you mentioned that Stephen Buck was going to give Councilmember Hanley. So perhaps, you know, Jack what do you think about Kevin Marquez? Perfect. Yes, okay. He would certainly.
All right. Mimi, I'll tell you what, we'll see if we can talk to Kevin Marquez, okay? All right.
You know, we're talking, this is unreal, just for a stinking sign. I mean, yes, it needs to be revamped, but I'm just asking for a sign.
Let's see if we can get a meeting first. How's that?
I'll be there.
All right.
They're gearing it up for a design build contract. So Kevin, that's a perfect solution. So I think that'll be great. Okay. Thank you for checking into that.
You're
yes,
welcome.
anyhow.
And I do have just another update on the 95 and Malabar Road. I know Mayor Medina is not here to discuss that. However, we know that it's a very important intersection, and I was updated by the team that they are working on identifying potential short-term improvements at this intersection that could be incorporated as part of the upcoming 3R project. And then long-term solutions will also be identified, as well as a plan created for funding on that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any questions for Yesenia for FTOP? Yes, Ms. Minus.
Ms. Georgiana, there was an email I sent you last night. I'm trying to find about
the O'Galley study.
Yes.
I read it on my phone. I need to go back. The O'Galley corridor study was done by the department a few years ago. And there were some improvements that were identified in that study, like long-term improvements related to potentially, from what my recollection, it was going to trigger a PD&E due to the drainage, even though it wasn't a widening. And so In the meantime, there was a resurfacing going along, and it's actually in the status of construction, because I know the city manager of Indy Atlantic just here recently reached out. So it is the 192 from Riverside to A1. That's not it. Okay, that's not the project I'm
We're
thinking
talking of Galley Boulevard at where the Publix is, that's.
Yes. There were short-term improvements planned for that. Councilmember Minas, let us check into it.
Okay,
We'll have to check into it. All right, we will.
I'll
do
make that report back.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further comments? All right, thank you. Thank you very much for your report. Very, very good. Thank you. All right, we were going to move on now to item 4, consent agenda. Georgiana, would you please read the consent agenda aloud for the record?
Yes. On our consent agenda, we have the governing board minutes of May 11th. We have committee appointments. We also have a work order for our traffic data report and analysis scope of services. We have a work order for our state of the system dashboard scope of services. We also have the Transportation Disadvantaged Planning Grant Resolution. We have our Community Transportation Coordinator Evaluation Report and a resolution for our PLC-01, which is our policies for the agency organization and operation, and the TDLCB board policy amendment. So you can approve the consent agenda in one motion if you choose to do so.
Thank you, Georgiana. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move to accept the consent agenda.
Motion by Ms. Minus, second by Mr. Willis. Thank you. All those in favor of the consent agenda signify by
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much. All right. We'll move down to item 5, adoption regarding the 2024 list of project priorities. Sarah.
All right. In May, I provided a more thorough presentation of the draft of list of project priorities. Today, I'm just going to provide a brief overview and request adoption. So the list of project priorities is essentially where the planning meets the money. And so it's the mechanism where we take projects out of the long-range transportation plan and we actually fund them and put them into the transportation improvement plan. So it bridges those two plans together. It is a prioritized multimodal project list that we use to communicate to FDOT which projects we are either requesting state or federal funds for or will be putting our federal funds on. FDOT then programs based upon the available revenues that year. And as I mentioned, it's the implementation of our long-range transportation plan and master plans. So when we're thinking about this list of project priorities, it's important to view it with an interregional lens. And so we want to think from MICO to MEMS, what projects are going to truly add regional value to our transportation system. As a reminder, the projects are ranked in this way, where they're first ranked with a quantitative score, which is based on criteria 0 to 100, a qualitative score, which is based on a consensus recommendation from our transportation subcommittee, and then finally, our committees and ultimately our governing board, having the final approval, can choose to discretionarily rank a project. So that would be, this is project 10, we feel it should be 3, et cetera. That 0 to 100 scoring is based on criteria in these 5 emphasis areas. So we have safety, where we're really trying to target the high crash corridors and addressing safety concerns. Transportation land use, this is improving access to our economic drivers, our community resources, our activity centers. Sustainability and resiliency, so this is considering drainage, stormwater, environmental concerns, as well as also resiliency with sea level rise, flooding, et cetera. Innovation, which is thinking about unique solutions and implementing ITS. And then finally, multimodal, which those are projects that address bicycle, pedestrian, and/or transit needs. So as a reminder of what's new, we had 5 new projects submitted this cycle. We have a planning study for Norfolk Parkway Extension, 2 regionally significant projects, which are Wickham Road at Post Road and then Mitten Road intersection improvements, and then 2 discretionary grants, the Micco Road Complete Street and then the St. John's Heritage Parkway widening. So during the May meeting, COCO did discuss and brought up that they would like to request that State Road 524 be moved from number 8 to number 4 to align with State Road 501, since those projects work together, and to address the issues of congestion as well as also development and the potential for a bright line station going into that area. And then finally, just kind of as a process overview, so you kind of understand where we are and where we're going. So annually, the TPO conducts the call for projects. This is always in January. We give several months for the cities and county to submit applications. We then evaluate and rank those applications. We adopt the list of project priorities. We then submit the list of project priorities as well as also our funding recommendations to FDOT. During kind of overlapping with this process, FDOT is reviewing the applications. They're vetting the various projects with our local municipalities, and then we work together to do the project programming, and ultimately they develop their work program development, or they develop their work program. Finally, a project is implemented either via FDOT implementing the project or through the local agency program or LAP project. And with that, I would like to request a motion to adopt this year's fiscal year 24 list of project priorities.
Can we get a motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Allender, was that? Okay. Thank you. Motion Allender, second Minus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to the next item. The next item is going to be a roll call vote, and this is the resolution 24-03 for the 2028 Transportation Improvement Program. Georgiana?
This will also be a very short presentation, but it's a very important document as well. This is our fiscal year 24 through 28 Transportation Improvement Program. And we presented the draft in May, and the TIP has been out for a 30-day public comment period. There have been no changes to the TIP since it was presented to you previously. And of course, you know, the projects in the TIP are in some stage of production or implementation over the next 5 years. It is the DOT's 5-year work program. And just a reminder that the TIP was developed from our list of project priorities, last work program cycle, and then the DOT incorporates those new projects that are funded into the work program. And of course, then they add resurfacing projects, safety program projects, and then the governor adopts that, the work program, and then it gets incorporated into our new TIP. The new TIP goes into effect on October the 1st. So we have $1.3 billion, 120 projects. We can't get what we want without the money. That is really bringing the state and federal funding into Brevard County is what we're after. It helps us with economics, safety, quality of life. These are very important projects. 19 of the projects are projects on our priority list, which is important. There's maintenance projects as well. We've got highway capacity on the state system, highway capacity on the county system, one bridge replacement, which is the Sebastian River Bridge on A1A, which is in DOT District 4, but we are including it in our TIP for planning consistency, 19 resurfacing projects throughout the county and 4 bridge rehabilitation projects. And then we have our modal partners, space, transit, aviation, and seaport. And you typically won't see these projects on our priority list because the modal agencies work directly with the FDOT District 5 staff and central office to program those improvements. But these are our economic drivers and extremely important to our county. And then we have our quality of life projects, you might say trails, sidewalks, complete streets. A1A is included in that is our one complete street project. However, a lot of the resurfacing projects that the department is doing are complete street projects. For instance, State Road 520 through the one-way pairs in the Cocoa Village area. That's a resurfacing project, but it has become a complete street, making it more friendly for bicyclists and pedestrians, and the TPO added funding to that because it was a priority for the city of Cocoa. And we also have 10 ITS projects. And so $1.3 billion, it's a lot of money coming into Brevard County. And, some of this funding in part is really based on your directive. So we thank you very much. And we are asking for your approval of this document. And as you said, it is by roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. May I please get a motion to approve?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Minus?
I move for approval.
Thank you. Motion Minus, second.
Second.
Second, Mr. Forster. This is a roll call vote.
Okay. Allender,
Yes.
Barton,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
Feltner,
Yes.
Forrester,
Yes.
Hanley,
Yes.
Minus,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Willis,
Yes.
and Young.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. We are now moving down to item 6, where we are going to move into presentations. This is quiet zones.
All right. Well, before Laura comes up to do a presentation on the TPO's approach for quiet zones, I just wanted to give you a very quick rundown about the presentation from the Federal Railroad Administration. And by the way, if you go to YouTube and type in Space Coast TPO, you can see our YouTube page, and you can watch Monday's meeting to watch the full presentation of the whole meeting, but specifically for FRA. So, when Roy Newton came, he discussed all the different various grant opportunities that are out there through the IIJA infrastructure bill. FRA is part of the Department of Transportation, and really they're the regulatory enforcement, and they investigate accidents, and then they do inspections. One of the things he mentioned, it was a very good presentation. Florida is number 3 nationally for railroad crossing incidents, where people just can't seem to stay out of the way of trains. California and Texas lead the list. But it definitely seems to be a U.S. problem. He mentioned you don't see this on the global scale. It's definitely in the United States. And then the 5-year trend, and this 5-year trend is for Brevard locally, is 2018 through 22. There were only 10 incidents in Brevard County. That was 2 fatalities and 2 injuries, only 6 non-injuries, which he mentioned probably that someone, their car, got disabled on the tracks, and then they got out of the car and just left their vehicle there, which then has to be investigated. Where you compare that with Broward County, which had 112 incidents, 32 fatalities, and he said the majority of those was really within the last year. So they definitely have a problem down there, and they are, FRA is looking and auditing their quiet zones to see if they're going to be taken away. So I thought that was some interesting information. He gave a lot of statistics. He also discussed quiet zones, and they are responsible for helping the municipalities establish quiet zones. So we've met with Roy and staff, Laura and I, and so, they will be helping us if this is the direction that we want to go in the future. After he presented, Katie popped up, and she gave a really good presentation, and she did want to let everyone know the 110-mile-per-hour testing has been done south of Brevard, but it will be happening, it will be taking place the week of July 24th. And so there will be a lot of public outreach, media coverage, so you'll be hearing about that, and we want to share that information. And then she also mentioned they've opened Melbourne Ave and Prospect Ave crossing, and the bridge work is completed. There's 50 crossings in Brevard County out of the 155 between West Palm and Cocoa. So we have a lot of crossings. Melbourne leads the way, and then Brevard County comes up, the rear. So I will turn it over to Laura and let her talk about quiet zones and what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you, Georgiana. So So a little bit of history first of why is the TPO involved with quiet zones? Georgiana just mentioned back in 2014, the Space Coast TPO embarked upon an evaluation and research into quiet zones, what the process was. And this slide clearly shows there are a lot of municipalities involved with quiet zones when you're looking at establishing one from the Indian River County line up through Cocoa. Melbourne, as she mentioned, is the largest with 18 crossings, followed by Brevard County with 12. Being that there's so many jurisdictions involved, the TPO is multi-jurisdictional. It just basically kind of made sense that we would be able to be a lead agency in helping coordinate and facilitate quiet zones. We, as an agency, cannot apply for them, but we can certainly get everybody in the room and discuss how the process is done. That being said, with that evaluation, quiet zones require a lot of work. You can't just say you no longer want a train horn. You have to put in supplemental safety measures, and what that means is if you're going to remove the train horn, you have to offset it with safety measures to allocate for the calculator to make sure that there's hopefully the still same amount of safety at those crossings, even if the train horn is not being sounded. Also at that time with Brightline, which was all aboard Florida at the time, coming through and widening and establishing their own service, it was very likely that they would be implementing and building the supplemental safety measures and installing them as part of their project. And so when we looked at quiet zones and what was going to be needed, we put it kind of on hold that we wouldn't be pursuing it until Brightline was up and running, and then we can go reevaluate and determine if there are any additional safety measures that need to be implemented. So Brightline's construction, as we just heard in the news media, is officially been completed. We know here in Brevard County they're still working out a few of the crossings, but they do anticipate starting service on September 1st. And with that, due to the high speed that Brightline does anticipate going through Brevard County, that 79 mile per hour is the trigger point. If you go above that, you have to have a sealed corridor. They have to have those supplemental safety measures, which then make the requirements for quiet zones a possibility. So they've been installed for us by Brightline in a way. So what we're going to be doing next is really looking at the inventory. The Federal Rail Administration, in coordination with local agencies, actually physically goes out, takes a field inventory, updates the master list in the system. There's a calculator that's involved. We need to also have the conversation, Georgiana lightly touched on what's going on down south. They have a very large population, and there's a lot of incidents occurring, and they are in quiet zones. Do we still want quiet zones? And I do think that it's possible that we do, but where do we want them? I'm not sure that from the county line all the way up to the Cocoa Curve is the entire quiet zone. Maybe there's certain areas that we are looking to have a quiet zone, and we're going to be asking for that kind of feedback. So the TPO as itself will help coordinate the discussion, have a meeting. We will coordinate with FRA, have them come in and do a training, go through the process. A public authority must be the one who applies for quiet zones. A notice of intent, once we decide if quiet zones are still needed and where they're needed, we can apply for that at any time. And then we can really get in and get FRA's assistance. They're more than happy to come in and help us go through the process, updating the information. The TPO also has a role. Last year, and I will be doing it again this year as part of the process, you have to have a lot of data. One of those data points is actually what is the volume of vehicles crossing those crossings. So we have been collecting the AADT at all the crossings that are in Brevard County last year, and we'll do that again this year so that data can be fed into the system. We'll be looking at crashes. That's another element of part of the calculator. And it's complicated but not complicated, but we do feel that with our consultants on board also, we'll probably be able to assist the locals that are interested in having a quiet zone established within the next year or two. The other element that I think is most critical is always safety. I think the TPO can help coordinate a consistent, common message with all of our municipalities. If we're wanting to implement quiet zones, we need to get out there and educate the the citizens and the people that are using our roadways that you're not going to be hearing a train horn. And this doesn't just apply to Brightline. If you go for a quiet zone, just a reminder, it's all trains. It's the freight and cargo trains that you see. So the Brightline passenger trains, along with any train that is on the tracks, will not be sounding their horn in those quiet zones. So with that, are there any questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Mr. Forster.
The,
Speak into the mic.
oh, is this turned on? Am I on? Yep. You've got a train coming 110 miles an hour, which means that if it starts blowing its horn a mile away, you've got about 35 seconds before it smashes your car. And if you're driving along with your windows rolled up and the radio on, train horn's not going to do you much good. So that's one comment. The other thing, and I'm going to address this to the city people here. We right now have East Coast Railroad trying to get us to pay, and I know we have an agreement with the municipalities to pay for the crossing upkeeps for the railroad, which annoys me in the first place. But right now, they're hitting us up for $90,000 to do work on a crossing that Brightline just redid 8 months ago. I'm a little confused about things like that. I don't know if we have any ability to do anything. I've not read the contract between Florida East Coast and the municipalities, the government agencies, but that just seems crazy to me. But I agree with you, Laura, that we do need to do something, whether we call it quiet zones or not. You know, counting on a train horn is not going to be the way to go with a 100-mile-an-hour train.
That's why they require those supplemental safety measures, and those are those engineering where you have the quadzates, where it's almost, you really have to work hard because they should be closing on both sides of the track and almost touching. I think it's like 24 inches of max that you can have a difference.
Right.
Good luck getting your car around that. I mean, people are really trying to beat the train if you're still trying to avoid a quad gate implementation. You have medians. In fact, I was just looking, I think it was at Eyster, or might be Riera Boulevard, where they're having the quad gates and the medians are there. I saw the raised medians were also on both sides. So, you know, are we going to stop incidents from happening 100%? Probably not, because prior presentations that we've had, the percentage of incidents that are happening with fatalities is very, very high with trains. It's almost like at 80%. So there's a mental health issue that also is tied to fatalities and safety with trains that we need to address. It's not just people in their vehicles, it's the pedestrians and those that need some assistance.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Minus.
Hey, did I hear you say that the trains will be coming through at 79 miles per hour?
No, it'll actually be faster than that. The 79 miles per hour is that trigger speed where if you go above that, that's why Brightline was required to put in there's a supplemental safety measures. They do intend, I believe Katie said, the majority through Brevard County will be 110, except the Cocoa curve will be around 80. Between Cocoa and Orlando, there are no crossings. It is a 100% sealed corridor, and the train will be going 125, I believe is what she said. But through Brevard, it'll be 110, except at the curve, it'll be a bit lower. And there might be originally, and I'll tell you, many years ago, I heard that the city of Melbourne downtown might also be a little bit slower than 110, but I don't know the exact speed. They'll be getting that information to us as part of any analysis we do, what the speeds will be at each of the crossings.
Okay, that's why I wanted to bring it a little personal to Melbourne. Those 18 crossings, so they'll be coming through at 110 miles per hour.
Yes, ma'am.
Through, and a lot of that is some residential that they'll be coming through.
Yeah, a half mile is the minimum requirement for a quiet zone. So you have to have at least a half mile track for a quiet zone.
Thank you, Ms. Minus. Any other comments for Laura All right. So the quiet zone is 24 hours a day. It's not just during dark sleeping
Correct.
time hours. It
Yep.
will never sound the horn.
And it is not when the gates close and you hear the ding, 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 ding. That's still going to happen. This is just for the train. That's the quiet part. No train horn. And it is 24 hours, all trains.
All right. There are fail-safes, I'm sure, for the quad gates.
Well, nothing's 100%.
Exactly. Nothing's 100%.
And I will say, I mean, it does not say that a train conductor cannot sound their horn. There are incidences where if they feel there's any kind of safety issue, they can still blow the horn, but 99% of the time they will not in a quiet zone.
Madam Chair, I was curious if the members have received any requests for quiet zones. I know we received a couple of emails, 2 or 3, maybe 4, wondering when are the quiet zones going to be established? Is this something that you're hearing or not necessarily? It doesn't sound like.
No, I'm not. I live like 1 block over from the railroad tracks, and I've been there for 42 years, so I don't even hear the trains, but they do sound. But I'm just so.
We may hear more after September 1st. Because we may hear more after September 1st when we've got 32 additional trains running the tracks.
And, I don't really want to say this, but I think that we need to be prepared that when the train starts rolling through, we may have an incident where someone steps out in front of the train. And it's something that we're going to have to deal with. So we need to just educate ourselves and really just kind of try to share as much information as possible. So as Brightline shares that information with us, I know Abby has reached out to all your PIOs. We really need to get that message out there and just try to make people aware because that September 1st it's right around the corner.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to ask for the PIOs for the different municipalities and other organizations, the SCLOC and all of the others, to make sure that they help get that information out as well.
Yes.
So it's very important.
Yeah, and Katie, I think, also attends those group meetings and has contacts with each one of the PIOs, with all the municipalities and the county. But we definitely will be sharing that information.
Put it in the water bill.
Mr. Forrester?
Brightline have one of the highest incident rates of any carrier in the country.
I don't know if it's Brightline. When I was looking at the national statistics, it's quite shocking how many incidences there actually are. But they are in your very populous states. That's Florida's ranked high, but you have to look at the rate with population, and that majority of them having down south is really kind of not a surprise due to the development, and that development has occurred around the train tracks.
Right.
And you've got that mixed use down there, literally over on both sides of a train track.
Yeah, I did see something, been a few months ago, that I don't know if they call it incident rate, fatality rate, whatever it was one of the highest in the country.
Yeah. Well, also down south, sorry, I love talking about trains. I know that when Brightline went in down there, because they are not going over the 79 miles per hour speed, they did not install the supplemental safety measures that we have here in Broward County. We are actually, in some ways, I feel a little bit lucky. Yes, the train's not stopping here and it's going super fast, but because it's going so fast, they had to install all those safety measures. Where down south, they are now after the fact going about and installing them. In fact, they got a Chrissy grant this past year in coordination with Brightline, some of the local municipalities down there, to actually install some of those quad gates, fencing, landscape buffering, the measures that we already have in place here in many places.
We are getting some channelization.
There's some signage, some striping, some other stuff, but yeah, down south they did not go in and install that. They just had the one arm in many places. So many people are still able to try and get around those arms that are coming down. We will not have that here, thankfully. I don't know why people try to beat a train.
People in Florida seem to have a thing about the, what is it, Sunrail in Orlando?
Mm-hmm.
They
stop all the time on them.
higher incident of accidents and deaths than anybody could have anticipated. They're not even high speed.
Yeah.
People just
Yeah,
walk out in front of them or pull their
Or
car
drive
in
out in
front of
front of
them.
it,
Or
yes.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I just, is that, thank you, Mr. Forrester. So these trains going 110 miles an hour, they're still only about 4 cars long, the passenger trains, correct?
I believe there's an engine, yeah, probably total 6, 7 at most with
Okay,
passengers.
so at 110 miles an hour, it's zip and it's gone, and
It'll
you'll
be
be
up
on your
and
way
out of
again.
there within 60 seconds typically.
Okay, all right, so, all right, so it won't,
And they're quiet.
and they'll be very quiet, yeah.
Well, their engines are, I mean, they're quiet in general, regardless of the horn issue. We're used to freight trains here. I grew up here. I mean, I don't hear the train anymore either, but freight trains are very loud. Bright lines are latest technology, fuel efficient. They're LNG or something. I forgot exactly what they're utilizing, but they're quiet, sleek trains. So they're very, not going to hear them. They'll be, all right, we'll see.
Any other comments before we move on to the next item? And our last item. All right, thank you very much, Laura. Our next item, which is also Laura, is the operating budget, our draft copy.
Money, yay, exciting thing to talk about. We are unique here at Space Coast TPO. We have 2 budgets that we operate on. Today I'm going to be focusing on our operating budget, which is what you're most familiar with local municipalities in the county, is your line item budgets with revenue and expenditures. But this budget that I'm presenting is based upon our grant program, our Unified Planning Work Program document. That document is a biannual document. It's done every 2 years. Bless you. And this is the 2nd year of that UPWP. I usually will present that in May of a year, and it becomes effective July 1st through June 30th. Our operating budget, because we are coordinated and utilize the county services in their financial system, operates on an October to September timeline. So there are 2 different budgets, 2 different fiscal years. The money will never match. Because of the difference in the fiscal years that we're reflecting. But I'm taking the projects and the programs that are in our UPWP, taking those grant monies and programming them into our operating budget, which is what you're going to see here. It's very simple. There are very limited revenues. We have federal and state on the majority of our revenue sources. They are from our grants directly. We do have 1 interlocal agreement with Brevard County, as I just mentioned, to utilize their services. That is an annual $60,000 agreement with them. On the revenue side, as I mentioned, on the federal, the majority of our funds are now in our consolidated planning grant. What that is, if you'll notice down in fiscal year 23, the current year we're in, our transit administration funding goes from 44 to 0. That does not mean we are not getting those funds anymore. What happened is 2 years ago, the DOT worked very diligently with Federal Highway and Federal Transit. We now have our federal transit funds included in our PL, now called the Consolidated Planning Grant. So that 1.3 million includes planning funds and the FTA funds. And moving forward, as we go into next year, we will not see transit administration. Our federal highway planning funds, SU, we use those for a few recurring projects, but that's our non-recurring studies, such as the long-range plan, resiliency master plan, ITS master plan, corridor studies. We fund all of those studies with our SU funds. What is new this year is the carbon reduction. Carbon reduction funding came out of the new federal highway bill, IIJA, and that has a limited use. So we are going to be using some of those funds to help fund the LRTP/Transit Development Plan. The carbon reduction funds are 100% going to be used for the Transit Development Plan. Also new is our intermodal grant. That's a grant that we were approved and received in May with DOT to conduct the feasibility station study in Cocoa. That was a $329,000 grant. I do not like to do amendments, so that's why you see 50,000, and that gets us through this September 30th, and then 300. Obviously, 350 is more than the 329, but the grant itself, due to the switching of the fiscal years, we will not expend more than that 329, but that prevents me from having to do an amendment, and hopefully that crystal ball works pretty well with that. County services stays the same, balance forward, you will not see until next February. Last year, we had a $9,000 balance forward. This year, just a note with balance forward, that's our county funds. We are going to start conserving those. We are going to be moving likely in the spring of 2025, and there are certain expenditures that will likely not be eligible with our grants. If we want to put a sign that says, here's the Space Coast TPO logo on our door, it's probably considered marketing, not eligible. We definitely want you to know what door to open, so we're going to be conserving some of those funds, so you're going to see balance forward probably increasing over the next year or two, so we can acquire those types of items. Revenues are at 3.2. Specifically, that increase is related to long-range plan, which is our largest project that we do. Taking those revenues and throwing them over into the expenditure side, there are your typical categories that you're going to see, salary and benefits. I will say, yes, there's a 0% increase, but that doesn't mean that we did not program and receive raises. What happened this past year, there were significant increases in our benefits, such as retirement increased, and so did the health benefits that we have. But we had long-term employees retire or move on, and they were in the middle to upper ranges of their salary ranges. So when they departed, we now have many new employees, so our salaries, the net effect is almost zero starting with new employees. Contracts, again, that is related to our ongoing contracts for services that we have to operate, such as we have to pay for Microsoft Office, Adobe, rent, IT, communications, legal services, all that's wrapped up in there. Consultant services, majority of that is from our SU funds, so you can see some of the projects that are listed that we'll be using for consultant services. An audit is a fixed rate that comes with the contract we do with them. Travel is increasing slightly. We have new employees. They need to travel and go to conferences and become familiar with our processes and learn professional development. So we are accommodating that a little bit over the next couple of years. And then on down the line, the computer keeps breaking, so I'm probably replacing that also. I don't know why that's occurring lately, but they are old computers we use, so we're probably going to get a new one. If you don't like tables, here's some pie charts for you. For a graphic, it is the exact same information that I just showed you on the tables. On the left is the revenue. The majority of our funds are federal. On the right, for expenditures, we're broken out. Majority is consultant and contracts, and the other 30% or so is salary and benefits. This operating budget continues what we've been doing in the past, and it will also go into effect October 1st. So if there's anything significant that occurs between today and September when the final comes for your approval, I will note those, but I don't anticipate anything happening unless you guys come up with something today. And this operating budget will go into effect October 1st. Not quite adjourning yet. Any questions?
Any questions for Laura regarding the budget?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are you looking for, this is not an action item, you don't need approval on this? Okay, all right, thank you. We did not have any comment cards, Zoe? No one put in a card? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, any comments from the board? Our next meeting is September 14th. Are we going to keep it at 10 o'clock unless you tell us other?
We will, we are going to investigate moving the meeting, so stay tuned.
Okay, so it will be on the 14th at some time to be determined.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, motion to adjourn. Motion, Mr. Hollander, second by Ms. Minus. All right, thank you.
And the executive committee will be meeting in 10 minutes, right here. If you have time.